Greetings to you, Crocoduck Army. If you spend any amount of time on social media, you've seen all kinds of political claims. If you're particularly discerning, you'll know how to pick some of these apart. Being able to persuasively argue that a claim is complete nonsense and use evidence to do it is important to being able to stem the tide of Trump-style conservatism before we can do it more thoroughly at the polls in November. Just last week, there was a huge culling of bots and troll accounts from Russia on Twitter, and the alt-right were by far the biggest losers after that move, with some losing thousands of followers. Several companies cut ties with the NRA after their leader gave a rambling speech about the dangers of socialism, and after pressure from the public. Teenage school shooting victims in a town hall on TV also made the NRA spokeswoman look pretty bad. Maybe we don't need to go full Hunger Games to get some kind of positive change. Yes, the NRA seems to be finally seen as who they've been for at least the past couple decades. They're simply a wing of the Republican Party. These memes about how guns don't kill people, and well, we have to ban knives too then, and good guys with guns, and trying to lecture people about what an assault weapon is, and that it's all just far too complicated to do anything about, so let's do nothing. All of it's wearing thin now. Their position is far more extreme than most Americans, and the average American position is still well within the Second Amendment framework. I think maybe it took some teenagers to actually stand up to them and speak out, and now people are joining that movement, a little bit how the Me Too movement started, but oddly with a somewhat different mix of people on either side of both of those issues. In both cases, I'm glad the conversation got started. The single most moronic claim I ever hear about politics is that all politicians are the same. This sometimes comes in the form of complaining that Trump's really bad, but Obama didn't pass a law about one issue or another when he was in office, so really they're about the same thing. Most recently it was about gun laws. Democrats had control of the presidency in both houses of Congress for only 2 years. During that time, they got the Affordable Care Act passed, barely, which was easily the law passed with the broadest impact on everyday Americans in several years. Republicans then successfully rallied their base to oppose it, and in 2010 they took back the House. Some seem to think Obama should have passed gun laws of some sort after 2010, which was always a non-starter with the Republican Congress. All of these changes in LGBT policy and federal marijuana policy did a complete 180 once Trump's people were in power, as well as a tax bill that, according to Paul Ryan, was enough for a school teacher's Costco membership, but will pay for a lot of my Australia trip later this year. When I hear people say they're all corporatists, what I hear is, I have strong opinions, but politics is really complicated and I don't really understand it that well. I recommend you familiarize yourself with some general concepts with election races. Following multiple races is complicated, and especially when talking about what states or districts are in play, you have to be very familiar with the history and trends of politics to understand what to predict. Even pundits who should know better sometimes make this mistake. Kansas, for instance, is a red state, yes, but Democrats have a fair chance of electing a Democrat to a seat that tilts only slightly Republican, and the incumbent won by a small margin in 2016. Understanding relative strength of a party by region based on population density, area of the country, and other factors is key to making predictions on how you think an election will go. On election night, when you see election returns come in, sparsely populated districts tend to be heavily Republican, and those tend to come in earlier. That's why some states will call it for a Democrat when there are a low percentage of votes counted and the Democrat is barely ahead. You'll be very popular at election watch parties. Many Trump fans claim that Trump is actually very popular and that reports of Trump's popularity being low are a result of fake news. Part of this is a result of selective memory, and part of it is poor understanding of polling. Trump supporters seem to remember very well the time a few weeks before the election when Trump was expected to lose badly, and maybe even lose states like Arizona and Georgia. What they remember less well is the Comey letter and how quickly the polling changed in the last 10 days before the election. I was watching it very closely, and I knew there was trouble as soon as it happened. Barring a similar type of news item to sway the hundreds of individual races for Congress this November, Republicans will lose dozens of seats, and hundreds of state legislature seats. Many Trump fans seem to believe this will be just like 2016, or at least how they think 2016 was, because they think the polls were wrong. But I'm fine with this. Never interrupt an enemy when they're making a mistake.